Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Red River Roundup right here on 446 Sports. My name is Marshall Leffler. I'm your host, brought to you as always by Gridiron Football USA, the Gridiron Football America All American game. And uh, we'll speak with Jace Lejeune later in the hour to recap quarterfinal round. It certainly did not disappoint. It was that typical quarterfinal feeling where there weren't any bad teams in the mix, and every game was kind of hard to find a margin, hard to figure out who was going to win that game. But we've got some experts around the state to help us figure out who won those games. And let's start. Let's bring on Doug Gann, the executive producer, founder of 446 Sports, and also the voice of the Ash Trojans. And Doug, talking, me, you, anyone else who was interested in this Ash and Catholic High game, kind of felt like it was sort of a pick 'em. And Catholic had that home field advantage. They're used to being in the semifinals. From what I saw, Ash went up 6-0, and it was 44 straight from Catholic High after that. So take a few minutes and just let us know what you saw from the broadcast booth.
Marshall, it was one of those, blue blood type of lunch pail games in the first half. Interceptions, turnovers. Trojans led the turnover margin in the first half, 2-1, led to that 6-3 lead. A couple of field goals from Eli Fung in that one. He included a missed field goal from Catholic. I think the snap was bad on that one, but it was just back and forth on there. The Trojans get their field goal with maybe 45 seconds to go in the first half and allowed a 55-yard kick return to Catholic, put them in good field position. They go in and get a field goal right before the half. And at halftime, you're thinking, okay, we're gonna have one of those games that come down to a final possession. But it was, 41 straight in the second half, most of that in the third quarter. It was the third quarter that just took Ash completely out of it. Turnovers, very uncharacteristic. Trojans couldn't run the ball with Kaysen Williams and Noble Williams in there, and the passing game was shut down as well. It was just a true and complete Catholic effort in the second half. But Marshall, if you look at the way Catholic ended their season, it was the same way. The last 4 or 5 games, they were just beating folks 40-7, 45. The defense was so solid, and they do so many things offensively. A lot of different quarterback, or two different quarterbacks that are in there. A lot of different running backs, multitude of receivers. But Jude Chamberlain, who's their big tight end wide receiver, really set the tone in there. They were just able to exploit that mismatch all night long.
And you mentioned that Catholic defense. I mean, this is a Trojan offense that averaged over 40 points a game for the majority of this season. Has a ton of talent there. Has a great offensive line. Held without a touchdown. I imagine you think a lot of that has to do with Catholic's defense. There were some turnovers as well. That were somewhat uncharacteristic of this offense, but it's we've heard it from a few experts around the state this time of year. It's strength on strength at this point.
Absolutely, it was. And, Catholic's defense is very good when they don't know what's coming. But when you've got to start throwing the ball, they pin their ears back. And very similar to their Cur Dog name. And we talked to one of the longtime fans of Catholic last night and said, well, why the Bears? Why the Cur Dogs? And they told us the story that goes back about 35 yards and 35 years. And it's just that intensity there. This Catholic High fan base is solid. Their defense, their offense is really good. And man, it should be a good one, because if they smell blood in the water, they're going to come get you. And that's what they did last night.
So let's just kind of a referendum on this Trojan season. I mean, of course, you've got a big senior class and some key guys there. You think of Richard, Hobbs, and Thibodeau, and some of those guys that have been leaders all year long, and some guys on defense as well. But what's from the voice of the Trojans? What's your how you sum up this 2025 season, and how do you sort of look ahead at next year?
Well, I tell you, Marshall, there, if you look up and down the roster, the bulk of their starters are sophomores and juniors. They had 16 seniors out of a class of maybe 90 players on there. So they'll return. If you look, Carson Sellers will be back, Alex Fontenot will be back. Noble and Kaysen are both just sophomores. They'll be back. You look at the 22 starters, and maybe 16 of them are not graduating. There's probably 6 of them that are graduating. You mentioned some of the seniors. Xavier White, X in the middle of it is one of the great ones that'll come through out of that linebacker spot. But the Trojans return 16 starters next year, including their weapon at kicker and Eli Fung. And you really think the future's bright, but dadgum, you hate to think of the future the Saturday after Thanksgiving, but that's high school football. That's football in general, and the show goes on. And we look back at the storied names through the seasons, and you're like, how do you replace these guys? But they do, and you've got 16 players that'll come back with Superdome experience and quarterfinal experience to make a big run. And you hate to look too early on, but they're going to be preseason contenders and preseason guys that people are looking at saying, boy, they're coming back pretty loaded.
Another game that you had a lot of insight to is John Curtis and Turlings. You've hosted the Michael Corville show this
Right.
season on 446 Sports. That another tough matchup between two teams that have had excellent regular seasons. Turlings, another team that had a lot of senior leadership, but with Coach Corville first year in that head coach role, it certainly looks like the Rebels are headed in the right direction despite a loss last night to the Patriots.
There's no doubt they are, and that's it. It burns a little more because that's 2 years in a row that they've lost in the quarterfinals to the Patriots. Really never got anything going in that game. Watched that game on the way home last night. Was able to talk to Coach Mikey on the way back as well, and you know the disappointment, you know the passion he has, and they'll graduate 30 guys. You lose some legends out of that TC family. Alex Munoz will be gone. AJ Price, who caught the touchdown at the end. Andrew Frugier doesn't play in the game last night as a senior. He went out, and he's probably going to be the defensive MVP, if not the district MVP. And they didn't have him in that game, and would have made a difference in it too. But I think they graduate 30 guys off of that squad. This was a very senior laden team. Now they're one of those that will make the move down in Division II next year. So things line up pretty well for them to continue their success. And I don't think anybody could have written up a better plan for Turlings Catholic this season in Mikey's first year than to go, what is it, 11-1 on the season, hosting a couple of playoff games. And man, the future is bright for that Turlings Catholic team.
Well, speaking up of writing a good plan, Doug Gann does that constantly on 446 Sports. This show that you're watching right now does not happen without Doug Gann's vision and execution and knowledge and everything that's required to get this thing rolling on Saturday morning. Does not happen without Doug Gann, and he also does a great job covering the Trojans and every team that is broadcasted on 446 Sports.
Marshall,
So,
Marshall, you already got the job, buddy. You don't have to keep, but
well,
I
look,
do appreciate it.
Look, it's look, some teams that we've covered all year go down last night, and that's it hurts, but that's part of it. But the fact that we get to sit here and discuss them and and look forward to what's next, not only next week but next year as well. It's a privilege. We're thankful for it. So.
Look, don't lose sight. And I know you'll talk to Jason. I'll get out of here because you got a tight schedule. You do a tremendous job of orchestrating this show on there. But live on 446 Sports, our YouTube, our Facebook, our Twitter, all of that, and the Gridiron page as well. You're going to have the Gridiron All-American Football Bowl game, and it's going to be December 30th. We'll be back on the call with that one that we've been on for, I think, 7 of these. So looking forward to doing that. We've got a host of basketball coming up, baseball, softball. Man, we'll even do some fishing this year. So thank you for what you do, and I appreciate you having me on this morning. And as always, go Trojans.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Doug Gann, the voice of the Trojans, executive producer of 446 Sports. And Doug, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thanks to Doug for recapping the Trojans' quarterfinal loss, also the Rebels' loss in the quarterfinals last night. One team that did not lose in the quarterfinals is the Haynesville Golden Tornado. And we're going to bring on the voice of the Tours this morning, Ty Garrett, to help us recap that quarterfinal matchup against Jonesboro Hodge. And Ty, it was a rematch of some district opponents, and Haynesville able to hold serve at home.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. Real quick side note, thank God I have Starlink, because without Starlink, I could never stream this from my house.
Look, that's the modern high school football in 2025. We all need a strong internet connection.
I would pay $500 a month for Starlink. So, but yes, this was a rematch from week 6, and the week 6 Jonesboro team, like, you could just throw it out the window because they got back one of their starting running backs. So, and week 6 was a Thursday night game. So, hey, you know, I try not to be a homer for Haynesville, but uh, Haynesville didn't play their best game, and I don't think they were fully focused on that Thursday night game. So this will be with Haynesville victory. Uh, I think it's the 6th straight year for semifinal appearance, and this will be the 3rd straight year if they get past Jeanerette state championship game.
Yeah, I know. 2 years ago, I believe that was a quarterfinal matchup, or it may have been a regional round. But yeah, Haynesville did host Jeanerette at home, and they've Jeanerette's got a lot of talent and a lot of familiarity with going deep in the playoffs. And Jeanerette looked really good last night against a really good Logansport team. So we're kind of familiar with what Haynesville is able to do with Washington and Brooks and the Critton, team Critton there in the backfield. But what's your early thoughts on another Haynesville Jeanerette matchup?
All right, so last night, yes, you've spoken about Critton. Well, Washington. So Washington attempted nine passes last night, and that's one thing that caught Jonesboro off guard. Haynesville has only thrown the ball, I think, 46 times on the year. So to throw the ball 9 times last night was a kind of a shocker for Jonesboro. We had our second drive of the night. We connected on an 88-yard touchdown to a Jaden Payton, which is a 6'7" tight end.
Yeah, number 88. Yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we got to wait for the state because he got ejected last night, right before half. So we'll have to wait and see if he plays next week. We just have to wait on the LSSA with the ruling. But I'm so happy. All right, so Jonesboro, their two running backs, Dakota Knox and Landon Boston, which missed a lot of the year, both of them almost had 200 yards rushing last week against Benton. So I'm sure that they planned to come out running the ball, but Jonesboro they were down 21-0 in the first quarter. So that kind of took away the game plan of they kind of got away. Well, I'm sure they weren't expecting to be down 21-0 first quarter.
Yeah.
So
and just talk a little bit about just this Haynesville program overall, and just the continuity that they're just quietly back in the semifinals, as crazy that is to say.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that the radio station in Haynesville came to agreement to broadcast their games, because last year was the first year doing it, and before that I had no connection to Haynesville. Well, last year in the championship game when they lost to South Platte, like, as an announcer, like, I felt like I graduated from Haynesville, and I was bummed out. And so for this year, obviously we got to get past Jeanerette, which will be the toughest opponent. But I'm kind of like, man, do we want to face South Platte for some redemption, or do we want to face Mangum, which will be a tough matchup, either way. But I so the senior class, Isaiah and Critton and Yezen Meters, these guys. This will be 3 years in a row to make it to the state championship, and I know that they're just hungry to raise a banner. So it's going to be. I can't wait.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I mean, it's making up to be yet another, Jeanerette and Haynesville matchup.
And real quick, last night, like some freshmen got into the game, and they have a freshman running back. Let's see what Perkins. I mean, the freshman running back and the freshman QB that came in, and it's just a factory of players. What I'm sure next year when they come in, like they'll look like seniors next year, considering they're a freshman this year and only had a handful of snaps late in games.
Yeah, and just going back, like Peyton, you mentioned a minute ago. I remember seeing Peyton as a freshman. It just looked like a baby giraffe out there. Just wait until he figures out how big he is and how well he can
So
play.
so the routes and the catches he has had this year, he wouldn't have made those last year. Like the growth that he had from last year to this year, I mean, you can really tell the route and the catch last night on the go route. Uh, I don't think he was pulling that down last year. I mean, when you got Ethan Henderson, Critton, Meters, and then you got Latravius Brooks as well. Latravius Brooks kind of gets forgotten because he's not in the backfield, but uh, Brooks and Henderson on little end arounds. Pick your poison. Honestly, so
and that's kind of the depth that Coach Franklin ends up building throughout the season through not the biggest roster in the world, but it, somehow does it, and they're back in the semifinals. So Ty Garrett, he's the voice of the Haynesville Golden Tornado. He had that game last night, and Ty, we appreciate you spending a few minutes with us to recap this game. Maybe we can do it again next week if the Tours can get back to the Superdome.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you're not doing nothing next week, check out the broadcast on Z107.5.
Yep, Z107.5. That's KXKZ out of the Ruston Monroe station there. And Ty will have the call as the Tours try to make it back to New Orleans. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, go Tornado.
Yes, sir. Appreciate Ty Garrett spending some time with us. That's a great home environment out there in Haynesville as the Tours move on. Mike McMillan is the founder and publisher of the North Shore Prep Report, and the North Shore had two teams in the quarterfinals last night between Franklinton and Jules Sumner. And Mike, if we'll start with Division II non-select, where the Demons gave a really good game to the top seeded North Dakota Griffin.
Yeah, Marshall, it was get your popcorn ready and fireworks ready. I think there was over 60 points scored in the first half, which was pretty impressive. And North DeSoto breaks out to a 14-0 lead, and it looked like they were going to score 100 points on the night. And surprisingly enough, in the entire game, and I would say even early, it really wasn't Luke Delafield. It was the running backs, Thomas and Layton, who were just, gashing the Franklinton defense in the middle. But I have to give Franklinton a lot of credit. They're down 14-0. It looks like the world's going to end. And, Superman Jacob Crane does Jacob Crane things, and they drive right down the field and they score a touchdown and get back in the game. And they go to halftime 37-31, I believe it was, or 37-30. And they came out in the second half, and I thought it was probably the best defensive half that Franklinton's had all season. Delafield, he's an incredible quarterback, and I look forward to that matchup with him and Crane so much. But where I was more impressed with anything was just the Franklinton defense kind of making that North DeSoto passing game a non-factor. It really was. Now, what that meant was North DeSoto was able to run the ball, but the adjustments that Franklinton made at halftime, being able to stop the run, were just incredible. And it was two heavyweights going back and forth. I listened to all your show this morning, and it's another one of those where you hear the names and it's the last time you're going to cover these guys, and it's a bummer because you feel like you're close to these kids and these programs. But it was a great night, for Franklinton football. Traveling to North DeSoto. That game, it's a 14-point game, the end, but it's tied in the fourth quarter. And Franklinton had a couple shots there with the ball late to go make plays or to get back in it, tie it up. And North DeSoto defense makes a couple good plays. I wrote in our preview that I thought in order for Franklinton to win the game, they'd have to run the ball well, which they did. Raiden Rayburn, at running back, and Ricardo Beers made a couple of big plays too. They ran the ball, pretty well, and I thought they needed turnovers. They intercepted 3 balls last night. So, and I spotlighted Jakeem McLean, who's incredible. He's DeMicus McLean's brother. So there's a household full of pretty good athletes. But,
Wow.
Jakeem made a couple big plays last night, and they had 3 turnovers. They made some stops. I mean, North DeSoto, it felt like they had the ball 100 times last night. I don't know how many plays they ran. It probably wasn't that many because they had some big hitting plays. But the second half was just an absolutely phenomenal football game. I mean, the first half was too. It was a tale of two halves and kind of how it went.
Let's jump to Sumner Calvary real quick, and then I want to get back and kind of ask you some more general questions about your reporting this year. But Sumner and Calvary, that's a wing T versus kind of you might call it a pro style offense that Calvary brought, and one, in my opinion, leading into the game, one of the best quarterfinal matchups, that 3-6 matchup.
Yeah, and it didn't disappoint, Marshall. I mean, Calvary got out to a 14-0 lead early. Might have been in the first quarter. And, I'll tell you what I think the difference was in the game. Calvary did a phenomenal job of limiting the big chunk plays. Sumner's had, that wing T offense, it's not really, and I wrote this in our preview yesterday, it's not really a methodical wing T, 3 to 5 yards and kind of get back in the huddle and do it again. Jamon Dyson and Jeremiah Brooks and Jakari Brown, those kids have made, 60, 70, 80-yard runs all season. And it just didn't happen last night. And you're just kind of waiting for it to happen. And, instead it was 12 to 15-yard gains. And, Sumner would get in their territory and kind of bog down a little bit. But I thought the difference was really, Calvary's ability to tackle in open space was massive. I thought they did that as well as I've seen a team do that all year. And they really shut down Jeremiah Brooks kind of up the middle on those traps and zones and X's that they would run out of the fullback position. So it was really an interesting game. It was an incredible defensive football game. Now, Jules Sumner kind of had to throw the ball more than they have all year. And it's not that they didn't throw it because they couldn't, but, they didn't need to. They ran the ball so well. But Eli Nealon, he could throw it. They had a couple opportunities where, defense made a really good play or, something crazy happened. But, they had the ball. They're driving, I think, less than a minute left. It's 4th and 9. And I think Nealon hits Dyson on like an 8-yard gain. They're a yard short in ending the game. But the whole game, Marshall, I just kind of felt like, okay, it's about to break open. Sumner's about to break this thing open. Sumner's about to break this thing open. And Calvary never let it happen. But, and I have to say this, Hudson Price and that crew, Braylon Huglin is phenomenal receiver for Calvary. This game was all about Ryan Miles. Like 5'5", 190. He looked every bit of it. He's powerful. He's athletic. He's quick. He reminds me a lot of Jamiron Dillon at A-Meet, kind of similar size. But phenomenal game by Calvary on defense. great season by Sumner, phenomenal run for them and Coach Career. They've lost 3 games in the last 2 seasons, and they've ended the last 2 seasons in the quarterfinals. So, it hurts, I'm sure, but these kids and these parents and the community will look back on this program, years from now, remember what a great ride that was for 2 years.
And that's kind of where I want to end it with you, and we'll let you get back to driving here. But these 2 programs in particular, they're the last 2 standing on, from the 985. But you mentioned Franklinton being a heavyweight earlier. You just mentioned Joel Sumner, over 20 wins combined the past 2 seasons, including an undefeated regular season. What does it say about those 2 programs that aren't in the big metro areas? It's not like they're, right in the middle of Mandeville or right there in Slidell where there's just 5A talent everywhere. But just your thoughts on Franklinton and Joel Sumner in particular, building programs under those, really talented and knowledgeable coaches.
Yeah, Marshall, I think of it in 2 words. And to me, in those communities, it's coaching and culture. And those coaches do such a phenomenal job of creating the right culture for them to be successful. They have a different group of kids. They're in rural areas. Now, look, every high school coach will tell you that it takes some luck, right? You need those 2 classes to be pretty good. You need, some linemen to be pretty good, and then you need some athletes. And they've had the perfect recipe. But I'll say this, both of those programs, and look, I'll throw, Lakeshore in the mix, I'll throw St. Paul's in the mix. I'll throw some other schools in there, but, they're just going to reload because of coaching and the culture. Those kids, now that they know what winning looks like, it's no longer you're hoping to win. In those places, when you lose, it's devastating because they're just not expecting to lose. And to me, that's the biggest win you can have, right? If you're a parent and you send your kid to a school, you want a coach to care about them, checks the box. You want a competitive program, it checks the box. You want accountability, it checks the box. And you want to expect to win because you're teaching your kids that that's the approach that they're going to have the rest of their lives. And it's paid off, in big dividends in both those places and some more places on the North Shore. But I couldn't be more proud. It's been a phenomenal season, covering those guys. We will, transition to the South Shore next week, and we'll have a bunch of previews for those games with, the Catholic League and Curtis and St. Aug rematch and Catholic Carr. It doesn't get much better than that. I've got to give Coach Stein at St. Charles, a bunch of credit. They went to Edie White, got a big win, big shutout. You got Vanderbilt Catholic back in it again. St. James with a win. You had a bunch of teams. Lutcher with that young quarterback. I know you know a little bit about this game, but they lose by a touchdown to Iowa. That's an impressive game by Lutcher, and they had a phenomenal season for that group. But lots of good football going around, man. Appreciate what you do. I've listened this morning. I'll be listening this afternoon and following up around the state. And look, I've got to say this. We talk a lot about Division I Select, but how about North Louisiana Division I non-select? I mean, good gosh almighty. We talk about the Catholic League and the run that people have to go through, but, it's not much different up there.
Yeah, we may just have Rustin Neville in the finals there in the Superdome. Mike,
I would like that.
Yeah, me too. Mike done just an undescribably good job with the North Shore and the South Shore as well this season. I'm sure I'll be following all week long to see kind of how you recap some of these football teams and keep it rolling. So check out the North Shore Prep Report. You can go to northshoreprepreport.com, or you can just find them anywhere on your favorite social channel. Mike McMillan, he does a fantastic job, him and his crew, Roger Glenn and everyone down there with covering those programs. And Mike, thanks so much for taking some time while you're driving to help recap some games with us this morning.
Thanks, Marshall. I know we'll get together soon. For everybody, we're going to do some basketball stuff here soon. And look, as devastated as I am when a football team's done for the season, I have to think that some basketball teams just got a little bit better too. So it's a full circle space in the high school sport world. That's for sure.
Well, look, you've been a part of making some of these heavyweight programs heavyweight by letting everyone around the state know how good they are. So it's much appreciated, and so is your time this morning.
I appreciate it, Marshall. Thanks for everything you do and having us on, brother.
Yep. Have a good Saturday.
You too, my man.
Thanks to Mike McMillan on the road, but doing all he can and doing so much that he's continued to do with North Shore Prep Reports. It's a fantastic resource for everybody. Chasten Tavares covers the Southwest Louisiana sports scene, not just football, but everything else. And Chasten, really some fantastic storylines coming from last night, just with everything that happened from one end to the other. I guess we can start with Iowa, but they are back in the semis, and that was something that you were on early this season.
It was chaos, was what it was. My goodness! First off, hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. Spent some good time with family and friends. But my goodness, look, it's always good times when you get Black Friday quarterfinal football, and that's what we got. We had 5 teams here in Southwest Louisiana who were competing. Look, only one come away with a win. Look, Barb had to go up and take on Neville. We kind of talked about it on our show this week. That maybe Barb's luck was going to run out. And look, they finished the year on such a high, winning 6 in a row. They had to crawl their way back into the playoffs in week 10, just trying to find a way to get in the playoffs. They were able to jump 3 spots, get that 26 and get into the playoffs just to even have a chance. And then to go, be the North Louisiana upset boys. They were able to navigate it. Look, hats off to Neville. My God. I mean, holding that Barb offense to no points, to shutting them out, that's impressive in its own right. And then you flip things over, Lake Charles College Prep. My God, what a game. Back and forth they went. They had to score in the final minute of the game to tie it up, get the 2-point conversion. And then, they go to overtime and they think they've held, they think they had held Vanderbilt Catholic, and, they end up getting the field goal, and right there on the 2-yard line, right there on the 3-yard line at the trying to win the game there in overtime, and not able to do so. So Lake Charles College Prep, their season comes to an end. Hamilton Christian, there's a lot going on at Hamilton Christian. I think everybody kind of knows around the state by now. There's a lot going on there. But I said it all year, they would go as far as Javon Vital could take them. And look, again, hats off to Ascension Episcopal. I mean, shutting that offense out that's been that good. It's all about slowing down Javon Vital. If you can slow down Javon Vital, you can pretty much take care of Hamilton Christian, and not many people have been able to do that this year. So hats off to Ascension Episcopal. Kinder's probably Kinder and LCCP are the real heartbreaking ones. Kinder for sure. Look, it feels like every year it's Union, it's death, taxes, and Union Parish in the state title game. No matter where they're seated, it's always Union Parish is always they're always going to be there. I think we all know that. They lost a bunch of guys from last year, but that doesn't matter. I mean, look, they're always a physical team. Kinder, look, they had their opportunities. Look, they had a chance to win the football game. They had the ball on the 1-yard line. And didn't even have to go to overtime. They could have won it right there. And it was 4th and goal from the 1. And Union Parish was able to find a way to get a stop and, send that game into overtime. And just a chaotic finish there in Kinder. And look, the one thing Coach Justin Reed told us when we got to visit with him on the Pigskin preview this week was they were going to have to be physical. They were going to have to be up to the challenge. And look, for the most part, watching that game from afar, it looked like they were. They looked like they were up to the challenge of, being physical with Union Parish. It just a few turnovers that haven't really happened a lot this year. That offense has really rolled. But again, playing a team as physical and, as fundamentally sound as that Union Parish team, well coached. I mean, Coach Spat does it year in and year out there at Union. And look, tough way for the Jackets of Kinder to go out, but my goodness. The Iowa Yellow Jackets, man, what a game. Look, I'm going to be honest. I've never seen a game start the way it did. And, I was talking to a couple people last night, they remember that Eunice state title game years ago where, Eunice opens up with a kickoff return for a touchdown. And then the ensuing kickoff is also returned for a touchdown. That's how it started. We had an 80-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. We started at 6:58. If you tuned in at 7:00, it was already 7-6. because we had back-to-back kickoff return for touchdowns to start. It was an 80-yarder by Alex Partee for Iowa, and then a 96-yarder for Ashton Stark. And if you tuned in at 7 o'clock, it was 7-6 Lutcher. It was one of the more unbelievable starts I've ever seen. And look, the first quarter was 21-20. 21-20 or 21-14. I'm sorry. They had 35 points scored in the first quarter of that football game. It was chaos. And look, it's a big kudos to Iowa because they were able to figure out a way to stop Ashton Stark. It was the Ashton Stark show for the early part of that football game. And look, he's unbelievable. He ended up getting hurt later in that game on the final drive, which, look, at the final drive, Lutcher has a chance to go tie the football game up. He goes down with an injury, and obviously hope everything's okay with him. He has a really bright future. He was really good. My goodness. I was excited to watch him play because I hadn't seen him, but I was excited to watch him play going into that game. In that first quarter, he was electric. But look, we talked about it on our broadcast. Iowa was going to have to find a way to make an adjustment, and boy, did they. They pretty much made Ashton Stark a non-factor until the fourth quarter, the last final drive, because you look for the second and third quarter, that offense of Lutcher couldn't do anything. I mean, they scored 21 points in the first quarter, and then they couldn't do anything from there on out. Iowa's defense stood up to the challenge, and look, Caston Lewis for Iowa. I've talked about him a couple of times this year. He's kind of been the wild card, the wild card for the Jackets. They can do it with guys like Javian Adams, and they bring Case and Foxhall in at times. They've obviously got Jeremiah Bushnell, but he's got an argument to be one of the best athletes in all of Southwest Louisiana. He's that good. He plays defense primarily, but look what he's done offensively. He had 3 touchdowns last night. Just comes so easy for him. But look, that was a lot of fun, and Iowa right back to the semifinals they go.
And will y'all be there next week for the Iowa Bell Chase?
Oh yeah, it's we're ready to rock and roll. We're already making plans and off and rolling this morning. My phone's already been going off this morning.
So you have that game next week?
Oh yeah.
Oh great. Okay, so that'll be on 92.9 The Lake. Any early thoughts about Bell Chase and how that matchup might look?
Look, their the defensive line is big. I haven't dove too far into them yet. I will probably this morning and a little bit tomorrow. They're big. They're going to run the old-fashioned, kind of wing T offense. They do it, and they do it well. It's not flashy. It's simple, but it works. And look, but it's all they're big up front. I mean, I think they have a defensive lineman. We were talking last night. He's like 300. He's got to be every bit of 300 pounds. He's a big kid. It's look, and the other part of it is the elements could play a factor. I mean, obviously it's tough to look at the weather a week ahead of time. It's like a 70% chance of rain Friday night and cold, which awful because it was so cold last night.
Yeah, elements did play a factor last night. You just feel like, look, there's offense could be tough to come by. That may happen next week.
Yeah, look, it certainly could be the case. And look, I think if you're Iowa, you might be okay with that, because just how well you've been able to throw the football over the last little bit. They've done it, or run the football rather, with multiple backs. I mean, they've got guys like, I mentioned it, Javian Adams, who's been really good. He's got really good vision. Case and Foxhall. They've got, Case and Lewis. They've got CJ Bello. Bushnell will take, carries at times. I'm actually interested to see if Iowa is ever going to go to this Javian Adams and Caston Lewis backfield, because they've teased it a couple of times in the playoffs, but I'll be curious if they get in a pinch, if they go to that, because that's a pretty unstoppable little Wildcat duo there for Iowa. But it's going to be fun. Look, I'm excited about it. Look, not many teams get to play in the semifinals, and it's going to be a blast. I can't wait. One win away from the carpet for the Jackets.
So yeah, Iowa and Bell Chase will be on 92.9 The Lake. Chaston and Patrick will have that game live. And any plans for the Pigskin preview this week?
Yeah, I think we're shooting for a pretty big show this week. We had a great crowd last week for a pre-Thanksgiving show, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun this week. I think Coach Tommy Johns is going to be on for the entire show, for most of the show. And then we're also gonna, some players may come up and hang out. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. We're excited for it. I'm expecting a pretty big crowd coming up on Wednesday night. Should be a lot of fun.
That'll be back at the regular time, 7
Yeah,
p.m.
7 days back in the regular time. Yeah, no, we pushed it up this last week. We run the McNeese Podcast, the McNeese Coaches Show, from 6 to 7. So we will push it back to our normal time this week.
So 7 o'clock, if the walk-ons in Lake Charles, you can watch it live. You can watch it on demand afterwards to get Chaston and Patrick's thoughts on the quarterfinals and to preview Iowa and Belle Chase. And then they'll have that game on Friday on 92.9 The Lake. Chaston, thanks for spending some minutes with us this morning to recap all 5 of the teams in your area last night. And it'll be a great game next week.
Yeah, appreciate you guys for having me as always. Look forward to it.
Yep. Thank you, Chaston.
Thank
you. Chaston Tavares. And again, Iowa back in the semifinals. And so, that'll be a great opportunity for Chaston and Patrick to broadcast another good semifinal game. There'll be plenty of semifinal games in the 318 area as North Louisiana makes a strong showing in the quarterfinals. Who better to discuss that with us than Sean Fox, Sports Talk 97.7, the North Delta Ramble, and the High School Football Rewind. And Fox, let's start with Neville because at some point Barb had 65 points against playoff teams in regular season games. They get bupkis at the bill.
Yeah, it was pure domination, Marshall. I've been really impressed with what Barb's done the last month of the season, but I don't think they got to 100 total yards and cross midfield till late in the fourth quarter. Neville absolutely and look, Jordan Griffin's been real special, right? I think he's been averaging close to 230 yards a game and 6 touchdowns over this stretch that Barb's been on. And the first carry of the game, he was knocked for a 4-yard loss, and that was very indicative of how that game was going to go. And listen, I think, look, it's kids and people do this, but like all these high schools now have like these Barstool Sports subsets, right? Look, this is, but like the Barstool Barb was very active this week, and they were very confident. And I know that the Neville kids were talking about that a lot. They're like, oh, because y'all beat West Monroe, y'all think y'all are going to come up here and beat Neville. And look, that's kids doing kid stuff on social media. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I know that's what they do, but apparently that was a big motivation, at least from the Neville kids all week long, was Barb was their students. I don't want to say their football team, but were quite chirpy and confident that Barb was going to go in there and win. And I think Neville wanted to go out and look, they got a running clock. Like it was never competitive. And look, maybe in baseball season, Barb will get it back. They had a hell of a run. They were certainly the Cinderella story. Jordan Griffin was really fun to watch. I enjoyed his highlights going up to the game, but like that was when Neville is clicking on all cylinders. And I think we saw it really twice this year, last night and against Ash. When they are playing like that, they can beat almost any team in the state. They're very, very good, and they are playing their best football right now.
Yeah, that held Ash to 14 points. Who's averaged, over 40 points coming into last night. And then again, we mentioned Barb. Is it a combination of Coach Collins scheming it up? Is it combined with some of those new defensive starters that are a lot different in week 1, week 10, or is it a combo of both?
Yeah, Marshall, it was like that. They really weren't healthy this year until the Washita game the first time. That's when you started seeing Neville be at their full complement on defense and along the offensive line. And you start noticing that's when the running game got better. So they've stopped the run a lot better since then, and they've actually run the football. Like Parker Robinson has been amazing all season long. For a long time, it was he and Young were pretty much this offense. But over the last month, they've been able to play complementary football, and Neville's always been known for being able to run the football. They were never able to do it consistently until this last month of the season. And now they've had 2 backs emerge in Roberson and in Blackstone, who is just a load between the tackles. I mean, nobody tackles this young man one-on-one. Like he's that kind of kid who runs to contact, very physical player. They've really, a lot of people left him for dead when Rustin came from behind. And I was like, people thought they'd get the table run on them. I was like, look, there's no way they're going to lose 3 games in a row. I think they're coming up with West Monroe, Washita, in particular Orton Ash. Like, they're not going to lose all 3. I didn't think they'd win all 3, but they've ever since that Rustin comeback, it's like a light switch came off. And again, it has to do with the health. And look, a transition. I know you didn't ask, but a transition to Washington. One for Neville to be able to keep it together after that epic letdown against your rival in the 100th game. Like it could have been a season deflator. Benji Lewis, they lost 4 heartbreakers in a row at Washington. Could have beaten Ruston, could have beaten Neville, could have beaten Ash, could have beaten Westbrook. They had leads in the fourth quarter in all those games, lost them all. You can see a lot of teams fold and like give up shop and be mentally just spent after that. The fact that Benji Lewis has been able to keep them together and make it to the semifinals for the first time in 20 years, that's been incredible to watch too.
So yeah, and let's talk about that Washita game, because the interesting thing about it, obviously, the result for sure. The interesting thing about it is how many people picked the Lions as a 14 seed in this matchup against a Parkway team that only lost to Evangel.
Yeah.
That says so much about Washita's regular season, in my opinion.
I think it says a ton about that. I don't think there's a lot of people outside the state who follow high school football that were really shocked by that outcome last night.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think a lot of people expected Washita to win, and I think that has to do with the way Washita has been playing, but also that the 2-5A and Marshall. Yes, we have a bias up here. We'll admit it, but you're seeing how it's playing out. They play a different level of football here. They just do, and most of the teams play an incredibly tough non-district schedule leading up to it. Like you wonder, like Neville plays Evangel in Calvary, in teams like in Sterlington, even though they're 3A state championship level teams. Like by the time you get to this point in the season, it's very rare you're going to face a team better than what you've already faced. And listen, Parkway had an amazing season. I've watched them from start to finish. They were one of the best teams, and they played a little bit of defense. I think them and North Dakota were really the only teams that played consistent defense in what is arena football in the Shreveport-Bossier area. But I did not think they would be ready for the physicality that they faced last night, and it proved to be that the way it played out.
Look, another, I thought that Ruston could hold court at home. I also, was hedging and saying it's just not going to shock me if that Southside train keeps rolling, because just of how strong that Southside has looked in several of their games, particularly in the latter half of the season. But with Ruston being able to, to kind of battle, I think they were down maybe a touchdown at one point in that game. I think Ruston went
28-14.
7. Yeah. So, and Ruston has had, big home games that, against West Monroe in week 10 and replacing, kind of going in there with Cole Gray, replacing Dalen Powell. But after this win, it kind of makes you, it kind of causes you to put Ruston right back with where you've put them the past 5 years, which I can't believe we're getting, we could potentially get some more 2-5A matchups in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, look, we were very close to Ruston and Neville in the Dome last year, and that would have actually been the 100th meeting all time, and it just didn't work out. We got to see it this year, and it ended up, like we said, being a classic game. But Jared Ball, I mean, you cannot. This is the first time I think since the 80s that Ruston has made 4 straight semifinals. And to do it with Powell going out with injury, down 28-14. Listen, that flex bonus Southside, I mean, we saw what Jess Curtis could do at Manny. And Southside's a sleeping giant that I don't think, like, you're going to see Southside in deep in the playoffs for years to come. Like that, they're building something really special there. Yep. But the problem with the flex bone is this: when it's working, it's tough to stop because nobody sees it. But if you get behind multiple scores and you got to start throwing the football, that's when you get in trouble. And when they were up 28-14, I think Ruston was managed to get a late score to make it 28-21 before half. And their defense coordinator, Marcus Yanez, who's a former head football coach in our area, as you know, Marshall, he really challenged that team at the half. It's like, look, like something's got to change. And in the second half, I mean, again, they were gashing them close to 300 yards rushing in the first half. Did not score in the second half. And Ruston was able to get up multiple scores, get Southside out of their comfort zone. It was a much better game than it was last year. But look, bro, at this point, I just kind of expect Ruston to be here. And now we've got a rematch of the state championship game from a few years ago against Zachary, who seems to be playing really good football right now. And they played another classic game for the second time in 3 weeks against Central last night.
Early thoughts on the Neville and Washita rematch.
I think it's going to be a very different game than the first time. And if I'm being completely transparent, Neville was very lucky to win that game. Washita probably should have won that football game. There was a couple of fluke things that happened. And look, there are 3 phases to a game. Special teams is actually the reason that I think Washita lost a couple games in district. But you could say they give up 17 to 24 points in special teams the first time they played Neville. It was that bad. In fact, they were punting. They got a really good punter, Trey Johnson, but Dylan Berryman was his up man, and he was punting from his end zone, and Berryman got too far back, and he punted it into the back of him. Plus, Neville had a kickoff return for a touchdown in that game. Plus, Neville ran back a kickoff or blocked a kick and ran it back for a touchdown in that game. So it really was special teams that cost Washita the first time around. Both teams are red hot. Both teams know what each other is going to do. I'm fascinated by this matchup. I think this is going to be an insanely crazy atmosphere at Bill Rupel. I think it might be the best atmosphere in the state on Friday night. I'm really looking forward to it because I do think what makes it special is I do really think it's a coin flip game. I think Neville has played a lot better since then, but so has Washita. And I don't think we're going to have as many special teams blunders this time around than we did the first time.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, as strong as both programs are, it's been the past 5 or 6 weeks that's really brought the state around to like, oh yeah, you can't take either team lightly. Quiet, and it tends to happen in Division IV, but Mangum is 1 game away from the Superdome, and they really do have, when healthy, a complete enough roster to get that done. Tough matchup. I believe it's South Plaquemine, which was the winner last year. But we might see the Dragons back in New Orleans.
I mean, there's the potential we see Mangum and Haynesville, 2 more teams to the 3. I think Haynesville's kind of a given. But, yeah, it's been a minute since we've seen Tommy Tharp coaching Mangum years ago, since we've seen them on the turf of the dome, and a very different offense than that dragon wing that Tommy used to run. I had a chance to see Marshall them in the Jamboree take on Richwood, and they are and they have not let up. They've got one of the funnest offense with Kobe Casey at quarterback. They've got the Bell Boys at wide receiver. Like, as far as just pure entertainment value, Mangum has got one of the most entertaining offenses. And now it's going to be interesting. We've got a really good offense versus a really good defense in South Plaquemine. If you look what their defense has done through the postseason, I've got a ton of respect for what Wild Feet has done at South Plaquemine, kind of reestablishing their dominance once again, because they had that run over Cyril Crutchfield, then it fell off. They brought Feet back. He's done a wonderful job. But I think, and again, we saw this last night with was it East Feliciana that Mangum beat? Okay.
Yes.
So East Feliciana had a really good defense. I think they were only giving up like 8 or 9 points a game against Mangum. You saw what Mangum was able to do. I think we're going to see that same kind of thing play out on Friday night. A really good defense versus South Plaquemines against a loaded offense from Mangum.
And speaking of loaded, I mean, yeah, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches with you have OCS go down, you have you have some teams that go down in the area, but you still have so many teams to discuss.
Hey, how about the Farmers? Just do what they do.
I'm still trying. My voice is still trying to recover after that Chance Hobson interception.
Yeah.
And Coach Bat, the last thing he said last night before making a beeline toward the charter bus was 7 straight, not too shabby.
That's incredible. It's an incredible run. And again, this is not the best Union team, Marshall. You know that. We've seen a lot better Union teams than this. But they found a way, and they always do. And this goes back to scheduling. You look at who they started with. I always tell people this every year. You and I have had this conversation. I don't care what Union's record is in the middle of October. By the time the end of the regular season and the playoffs are here, SPAT will have them ready. There's a reason they play Airline, North DeSoto's, teams like that, because you're never going to face anybody in this level of the playoffs better than what you faced in them.
Yeah, and it's so easy to say that now, but think about what that program has to go through during those weeks when you have to keep punching a redwood tree because it doesn't get easy and it doesn't feel good. Literally or figuratively, to go to Ash and get shut out. But again, yeah, it's just like punching a tree. Like eventually, there's enough blows that they just find a way to knock that tree down with just hitting.
And again, they just go and there's nothing fancy about it. You know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to lean on you for 4 quarters and they are going to out physical. There's nothing flashy, or I'll say, like, watching Union's not fun. It's not, but it's effective. And the bottom line is results. They will lean on you. They will outwork you. They will out physical you until they are the last team standing. If you're looking for entertainment value, that's not the team to go watch. But they are just throwback, smash mouth, old school football.
Yeah. What's fancy about fourth down at the goal line? There's only one thing to do. It's to go straight forward or go straight back. And that's the kind of play call Union wants. So yeah, it was incredible. And 2 weeks in a row, for that to take place. So yeah, we'll get them in the semis again. They'll go back to Gina. I know you were there 2 years ago for that game. But just another, last year, Sterlington was the only team really north of New Iberia that brought home any hardware, at least the gold variety. But the 318, particularly the areas that you cover, have some chances to maybe to take a few more trophies back up north.
I would be shocked if obviously somebody is going to go between Neville and Washita, but I would be shocked if we don't have at least 4 teams from the I-20 corridor in the Superdome in 2 weeks.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it, and it'll be just as exciting as it's always been as the Ruston Monroe I-20 area continues to represent high school football. And Sean Fox does a great job of representing that area as well. So, Fox, thank you for spending time with me this morning, and we'll talk.
I'll talk to you in a few minutes. Yeah,
I'll be there.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Yep.
Sean Fox, Sports Talk 97.7, North Delta Ramble, and the High School Football Rewind show that'll come up at 10 a.m. on Sports Talk 97.7. Let's go now to Jace Lejeune, who is the lead beat reporter for Gridiron Football USA. And Jace, we've talked a lot about Dunham this year for good reason. They're into the semis with another quality win over Newman.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we preach about this Dunham team all season long, right? About offensively with Elijah Haven. We talk about him a whole lot. I think he had another 6 touchdowns last night. Just kind of another day in the office for him. It seems like 6 touchdowns. He just kind of, it's a decent game for him.
Yeah,
it's really coming to that point. But yeah, defensively, they're really good as well. But yeah, I mean, they had to go on the road. Newman was the higher seed and had to go on the road and win that game. And Newman's been playing better football as of late under Coach Aaron Weiss. But the Dunham Tigers, how about them going on the road, getting that win? I'm really high on them. And I tell you what, that game in the semifinals with them and LCA, that should be a great matchup. And I'm really high on Dunham's team. You taught me, you heard me sing my praises about them this year. And you look at LCA, they're playing one of the top 5 teams in the state right now. So that's going to be a great matchup. Obviously, LCA lost to Dunham last year. Dunham had to come back and win that football game last year. So a little bit of revenge on their minds for LCA, knowing they had a little bit of unfinished business.
Do you think that, or where beyond Elijah Haven versus Braylon Walker do you think this game lies? Because I mean, those are 2 quarterbacks that have been thrilling to watch this season, and they've been a huge reason for their respective team's success. But what else goes into this matchup besides 2 elite quarterbacks in Select D3?
I think here it's going to come down to the running game. To be honest with you, Cam Bellard from LCA, he's been running like one of the best running backs in the state this year for them, and I think it's going to come down to that. Be honest with you, we know about the quarterbacks, and really, I mean, both defenses are really solid too. But I think at this time of the year, especially, it finally got cold last night. It finally got some cold weather last night, so it's going to finally come down to some smash mouth football, to run the football, so control the line of scrimmage, and it's going to come down to the supporting cast. We talk about Brandon Walker, we talk about Elijah Haven, but they have a really talented supporting cast, and I think it's going to come down to which supporting cast performs better on Friday night for sure.
Yeah, you and I have talked about Jarvis Washington and Richard Montgomery and Chris Thomas for Dunham, but Braden Allen on the outside for LCA. I mean, I have been thrilled, very, very impressed watching some of his films, particularly in that Evangel game. So yeah, it's A lot of talent. Obviously,
Mhm.
both of those schools have done a great job with their roster and with their performance on the field. So, gosh, Tunham and LCA, I'm very much looking forward to that.
That's gonna be a fun one.
That game, yeah, next week. What'd you think about Plaquemine getting the win there? As the 5 seed going in there and getting the win to get the Green Devils into the semifinals.
Yeah, we had a lot of Green Devil fans on my show on Tuesday, Marshall, and they're like, "Man, we want revenge. We want revenge on Cecilia. They ended their season last year, and it was pretty natural. And if the fans are like this, you can imagine what the players and the coaches are like. Preparing for this football game. Cecilia's had a pretty good run last couple of games. Brown Calais has really taken over in some of these games late in the year, but this Green Devils team, I saw them in the spring. They are really talented. As far as athletes go, they probably have the most upside in this bracket. We talk about Division II non-select. Now, that is going to be a tall order when you have to go on the road and play North DeSoto in the semifinals. But Plaquemine has been really talented. They got definitely a lot of playmakers on both sides of the football, especially in their back. They're back in the defense. They're secondary against North DeSoto's offense, and their passing attacks will be fun to watch.
A kind of an all 2-2-5 matchup last night between Zachary and Central. So the defending champs go down, does Central, and Zachary into the semis. They get a matchup against Ruston, but really good job by Zachary, the 13 seed, making it through 3 rounds.
I was hearing you and John talk about Union Parish, and it's just kind of like one of those things, like no matter where they're at in November, like it's different from what they are in September and October. That's kind of the same thing when it comes to Zachary. Like Zachary hasn't had like the regular season that we usually see Zachary have, but they just turn up a notch when it comes to November, right? And they really turn up a notch with David Brereton, and they had to go and beat 2 Baton Rouge teams, higher seeded teams. They had to go beat Denham Springs, and then now they had to go beat Central, the defending state champs. So it just comes to show you that no matter what Zachary's record is and what they may look like in the regular season, they just seem to turn up a notch in November, and you've seen that from David Brereton's crew.
You were at, one of the best matchups going into last night, Oak Grove and St. James. I'm not as high as I am on Oak Grove and as much respect as I have for that program. This doesn't say much. This says less about them. I did think that St. James was going to have a multiple score win. That was just my opinion, one person's opinion, and probably not a good one. But that is what happened. What did you see that kind of led into St. James? Again, they took down St. Charles. It's such a tough schedule this year, but they really looked the part, at least on the scoreboard against Oak Grove.
Yeah, you knew that Oak Grove's best chance was to make that one ugly. Yeah. That was really the really best shot. And unfortunately, early on, you knew it wasn't going to be ugly. It wasn't going to be an ugly game. St. James, man, they were really explosive last year on offense. The scary thing about them is they actually may even be more explosive this year. They are really good offensively. Jawan Jackson, the quarterback for St. James, this kid is the real deal. He is only a sophomore. He's still got 2 more years left, and he's made some throws like I think NFL quarterbacks would be pretty jealous of. He was throwing it on the money deep down the field, and he can run the football as well. They got the Villanova brothers. I knew about Jakias, but his younger brother Jaden had 4 rushing touchdowns last night. So you got to deal with his brother as well. And there's like 3 or 4 other guys I lost count that scored touchdowns. They got so many different weapons at St. James. They scored, and that's a good Oak Grove defense, but they scored every single time they touched the football until the very end of the football game. They're just trying to run the clock out. So this St. James team is for real. That's going to be a great matchup with Sterlington. I know they lost to Sterlington in the Superdome last year. I kind of knew that St. James Sterlington we'll be seeing this matchup for the next 4 years. I thought in the Superdome they just happened to be on the same side of the ladder this year, same side of the bracket this year. But St. James, I know they make the drive up to Sterlington, but watch out with the way the Wildcats are playing football right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's any area where you give St. James a disadvantage. However, I think that this game, especially with a 2-3 seed, I think this home field element to this game might be one of the most important home field elements of the entire season, regular season, postseason. In other words, if Sterlington goes to St. James, I think we potentially look at this game way different than Sterlington getting to host. Just because you were there. Golly, I mean, how do you go into St. James and get a win in the playoffs? It's a tough place to play.
I don't think I can still hear you, Marshall, because those train horns are still blaring pretty loud last night.
I was there last year. Yeah, I can barely talk because I was at Union Kinder. But yes, the train horns in beautiful downtown Vacherie, I still hear them 12 months later. Catholic and Carr. Sheesh. I mean, a lot of talk this year has been, is Catholic one of the teams that could make it that kind of night for Edna Carr? And Catholic scored 44 unanswered against Ash last night at home. Of course, this one will be in the New Orleans area for next week. But that's your early thoughts on that heavyweight matchup. No other way to put it.
Yeah, it is a heavyweight matchup, and I saw the score at halftime, and it was 6-3 Ash. And I looked at it, I was like, "Wow, okay, we got ourselves a dogfight there." And then after the game, I didn't even see the score. I just saw Catholic came back and won. I was like, "Oh, okay, it must have been like a 27-20 type of game." And then I found it was 44-6. I was like, "What happened in the second half?" But the Catholic and the Carr game. I called that game last year in the semifinals when Edna Carr played Catholic. And I can tell you this for experience in watching that game last year, that Catholic belonged. And to be honest with you, Catholic, there were plenty of times throughout that game they outplayed Carr. So there were about 3 or 4 plays it came down to from that Carr Catholic game last year, and Carr just made those plays. John Johnson made some plays with his legs that really made the difference in that football game last year in the semifinals. Catholic had the lead. I thought they had a good game plan going in. So they're make no mistake about it. This is kind of the point of the year for Edna Carr. Like, okay, it starts to ramp up. You got Catholic, and then obviously in the Dome, you'll play somebody that you're familiar with, whether that be St. Augustine or John Curtis. But these are teams that can play with Carr, make it interesting, especially Catholic. I know Catholic is definitely one of those teams that has a great chance, I believe, to play with Carr and have a chance to beat them. There's only a couple teams that can do it and are capable of doing it, and Catholic is certainly one of them.
What do you think? You mentioned that St. Aug and Curtis matchup next week. Any early thoughts about that one? I mean, that's another just Catholic League brawl.
Yeah, I mean, basically in the regular season, St. Augustine took care of business, and I think right now that the Purple Knights are trying to win. I believe their 3rd straight against John Curtis, which is it's hard to do. Let's just say that to beat them 3 times in a row. But that first game, it was all Purple Knights. I mean, 55-28. But I just kind of even though the Purple Knights look that impressive, and they're playing one of the hottest teams in the state right now, based off how they've been playing the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But you still have that JT Curtis factor in the playoffs and John Curtis factor to it. That's the only reason I'm not like saying slam dunk St. Augustine right now, is because it's hard to go against John Curtis and the Patriots in the playoff time.
You've covered a lot of the team. In fact, maybe all 4 teams that are still remaining in Division IV Select. You've done a great job covering a lot of those smaller programs. But Westminster matches up with Trevin Simon and Ascension Catholic next week. Also, Ascension Episcopal, who ended Hamilton's season, they'll get Riverside. Tough to really pick either of those games so far, but based on the quarterfinals and the regular season, what are your thoughts on the Division IV Select semifinals?
Yeah, Division Four Select is always one of those most underrated brackets
Yeah.
because you know there's going to be a lot of different teams, especially Division Four Select and Division Three Select. You know, there's a lot of really good teams in those brackets and teams that can make runs. And you look at Division Four Select. I mean, the top side of the bracket. If you like great running back play, go check out Westminster and Ascension Catholic. Because Ascension Catholic, we know about Trevin Simon. I mean, I talked to Coach last night on our show. Last night, and he talked about, I think Trevin had another 400 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns on the ground. It's been absolutely insane what he's been doing, especially a year removed after what Chad Elsey did, and to replace him and have the season like he's had. I think he's had like 53 rushing touchdowns or something like that this year. It's been absolutely insane what he's been
So
doing.
I mean, is he the kind of back that can make the game? Is like if you have him, your team has that much of an advantage?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that the offense runs right through Ascension Catholic through him, and that's really been Ascension Catholic since as long as I can remember. They've always had a great running back, whether it's Jai Williams and Josh Barber, or it's been Chad Elsey in the last couple of years. It seems like they've had always a talented running back, and their offensive line's been really good, but. Yeah, I mean, that's the key. You're going to have to stop number 9. You're going to have to stop Trevin Simon running the football. But what makes this game so unique is Westminster got themselves. I don't think a lot of people have been talking about this kid that much, but Kyle Horde from Westminster is a man. I mean, he's like 6'2", 220 pounds, and has like legitimate like track speed. Like this kid can not only run over you, but he can outrun everybody. So these are 2 great running backs as well. Both have talented quarterbacks as well, but I expect a lot of scoring because and both these running backs are the real deal, and they should get their yards for sure.
And Riverside, I was paying close attention to Riverside and OCS last night. Riverside with a really impressive quarterfinal win over a good Eagle team.
Yeah.
And then we mentioned Blue Gators, get it done over the Warriors. So that's another matchup with teams that deserve to be there between Ascension Episcopal and Riverside.
Yeah, Ascension Episcopal is really flying on the radar. They got some pretty impressive wins. I mean, they had to beat Kentwood in overtime, or I guess like on the game-winning field goal. And then you go and look at the last night, Hamilton Christian. I know there's a lot of outside noise, what's going on with the school and the program over there at Hamilton Christian, but still, this is still a team that I thought would band together because of the circumstances and play harder together. But it's just a lot going on for that school to go through. But still, I mean, you got to get a lot of credit to Ascension Episcopal for the performance that they're able to put out and the win that they're able to pull out. So Ascension Episcopal still having a very impressive season, and they're going to have a good rematch. I mean, a good matchup, I would say, against, you talk about Riverside. I thought that the winner of Riverside Washita Christian would actually be in the dome. So that's just my thoughts, and I did not see that coming in terms of how much. I mean, Riverside had their way with Washita Christian, but they got a lot of great athletes. Brock Bourgeois is a senior quarterback. That's what you want to have at Riverside Academy. Jane Obikwe has really come on as their running back. They got Boogie Johnson is a really talented wide receiver for them, and all these guys can play, so they can beat you running the ball, throwing the ball. But Ascension Episcopal is a well-coached football team, and they're going to make it challenging, so that should be a great matchup.
Yeah, Riverside, I believe, was the runner-up to Southern Lab 2 years ago.
Yep, correct.
In the Q4 Select Finals. So yeah, you may be right. They may be right back there again. Anything I missed, Jace, or anything that you want to cover stood out to you from the quarterfinals?
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered pretty much about all of it. I mean, there's a lot of really good teams left. It's that point of the year, right? So you knew around Thanksgiving week in the quarterfinal round, your 64 teams that are practicing during Thanksgiving week, that they're all good at this point. So, I mean, there's just a lot of really good teams next week. And, hey, unfortunately, you put so much time into it. You practice, you prepare so much, and now, unfortunately, there's going to be some teams that are going to be disappointed because they come that short of the Superdome, of going to the Superdome. So it's going to be a great week to cover some semifinal football, and then 2 weeks from now, we're going to be in the Superdome. So we're looking forward to it. It's one of the best times of the year for sure.
Well, yeah, Jace will be there. I'll be there as well, and Jace Lejeune does a great job covering sports, covering football all over the state of Louisiana, but has a great beat on every team in the 225 area, and a lot of teams in your area still left. So, Jace, appreciate you spending time with us this morning, and can't wait to do it again, sir.
Absolutely looking forward to it, Marshall. Have yourself a good one.
Yes, sir. Thanks you. Thanks, Jace. Jace Lejeune, the lead beat reporter for Gridiron Football USA, and again, yeah, so many teams in that area that made their way into the brackets and remain. One team that does remain in that bracket in Division III non-select is the top-seeded Gina Giants, and we will now bring on Austin Watley, who is the play-by-play voice of the Giants. And Austin, Giants coming in against an upstart Mansfield team who won their district and had a great overtime win against Marksville in the regional round. But it looks like that Giant offense, which has been as good as any that you've seen in the state this year, was on a roll again against the Wolverines.
Yeah, Mansfield came out, put together a really good drive to start, and Mansfield, they're very good on offense. They're very fast, have two good running backs, kind of like we do, but they're more built on speed, and they drove down to the 10-yard line to start and had two penalties that backed them up, and then our defense turned them over on downs, and from there our offense just took over. And I think in the playoffs our offense has had to punt one time. So when our offense gets rolling and they control the game like they did last night, it's really hard for teams to come back on the Giants.
So it seems to me, kind of watching, at least just kind of tracking how these Gina games go and talking with you about it, that it's kind of been, even going back to Bunkie and ever since that game, or really maybe even since the Tioga game, that the focus in that field house has not been about anybody outside, but just about what Gina's trying to do. And the scores and the way these games go seem to tell that story, because it's just, no upsets, nothing crazy has happened. The offense continues to score. The defense continues to play off of the offensive success. And has it looked like that to you, where it's just, as simple it is to say it, that has it just looked like Gina has done what everyone has expected that they could do throughout this latter part of the season?
Yeah, they've taken care of business. And to me, we have reached a level of the players being locked in that, it's hard to get high school kids to be locked in like we are right now. But I really thought if there was going to be a week that we would play bad or maybe get upset, I thought it would be this week when you're out of school for Thanksgiving. You're playing a team in Mansfield who you played in the scrimmage, and you did well against them, and you worry about the kids overlooking them, looking ahead. And last night it was business as usual, just took care of business. And and when we get up late in the game, we're up by 2 or 3 scores, and we were like that last week. Well, then you start to worry about somebody getting a personal foul penalty or being baited into something where they get thrown out of a game or something. But our guys are so locked in; they know it's not about the other team; it's just about us, and they're really locked in right now and playing some good football.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Coach Roark said was, it's not about them, it's about us. So here's going back to what you've kind of said about taking care of business. So against St. Helena, against Marksville, and against Mansfield, you've got playoff matchups against teams that have not, at least in recent years, been to the level that Gina has been. So it's been taking care of business, holding court at home, and out executing teams because you've got a program that's more experienced, or that that's more experienced than your opponent. This Friday, you get Union again, and as opposed to St. Helena, Marksville, Mansfield, nothing against those teams, but this week you're getting a team that has been there, that has defeated Gina at home, that is used to these late November, early December playoff matchups. So There's no secrets about this matchup, obviously, because both coaches are going to do what they're going to do, and both rosters are going to be an extension of that. But what is unique about this matchup compared to other similar playoff matchups in the past that you've been a part of, and also in comparison to these earlier rounds that Gina has had in this postseason?
Yeah, we are very familiar with Union Parish. I think in the 15 years I've been doing this, we've played them 3 times in the playoffs, and all 3 times they've ended our season. Twice up there in the second round, and then 2 years ago they came to Gina and ended our season in the semifinals. So we're very familiar with Coach Batafora and the Farmers, and they've done a great job up there with that program. And I really feel like we're very similar programs. We're built on our run game and playing good defense. And like you said, Coach Roark and Coach Spat, they're not going to change. So what you've seen all year is what you're going to see on Friday night. They're going to line it up. They're going to run it right at you, and it's going to be whatever team can prove to be more tough and can get some stops. I do feel like this Union Parish defense is going to be probably one of, if not the best defenses we've played all year. Tioga, up to this point, has probably been the best defense we've played, and they were able to slow us down in that game. But I really think this Farmer defense is going to be going to challenge our offense. Where all year we've been able to just kind of control the game with our offense, put together long drives, hit big plays. I'm interested to see how our offense does on Friday night against Union Parish, where if they slow us down some and if we are forced to punt a few times, because we really haven't done that in any games this year. I mean, I think maybe only the Tioga game where we've had to punt more than once. So it's going to be interesting.
Let me ask you this, and you just be completely honest. Yes, no, heck no, whatever. after you felt that Gina was in control last night and was going to get the win over Mansfield, what was your reaction when you found out who your next opponent would be? Was it heck yeah, give me Union again, or were you hoping to face Kinder, or what was your reaction as as the play-by-play voice?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Personally, this is just my opinion. I'm not representing all of Gina, just my opinion.
Fair enough.
When the brackets came out, everybody was talking about Sterlington, St. James, and us.
Yes.
And when I saw that Union Parish was on our side, I said, well, you cannot count them out. But I also said it would be very nice and very sweet to be able to beat Union Parish to go to the Dome, or for our first time. I feel like Union Parish, like I said, they beat us 3 times to end our season. If you beat them to go to the Dome, it's almost like for a program getting over the hump. And the team that we haven't been able to beat those 3 times, if we can beat them to get there, it would make it a little bit more special. So I was kind of wanting Union Parish in that game last night.
Well, I would even in the way that you meant it. I love the term "sweet" to be used to describe this upcoming matchup, because it will be anything but that. But I mean, gosh, what a fantastic semifinal matchup, and from a Gina perspective, it's exactly what you said. To be the best, you want to beat teams like this. I'm not saying that Union's the best in this bracket or that they've ever been. But they have been the champs there, and Gina has been the best in that bracket this year, judging by that 1 seed and judging by what they've done in the playoffs so far. So it'll be a great game. You and I will get to be there in Guy Campbell broadcasting for both respective sides. So certainly looking forward to it and being a part of that Gina game day atmosphere, and it's going to be a great one. So Austin, we appreciate your time, spending some time with us this morning, recapping the win and previewing the semifinals.
Thank you, and look forward to seeing you on Friday.
Yep. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Austin. That's Austin Watley, the play-by-play voice of the Gina Giants, Division III non-select semifinals. It'll be Gina, and Union. And on the other side of that bracket will be the St. James Wildcats and the Sterlington Panthers, the defending champs out of that bracket. So let's bring on the voice of the Sterlington Panthers, Mr. Ben Hackler, who is going to recap the win last night and preview the semifinal matchups. Ben, good morning. And, here's the interesting thing is you and I and others really, really, really had some wait and see kind of thoughts about Loreauville and Sterlington. I have a ton of respect for Loreauville. Obviously, I have a ton of respect for Sterlington. That score is super, super impressive. Do you agree? And whether or not you do, what went into that score where Sterlington just pulled away from a tough Loreauville team?
I got no audio. Can you hear me, Marshall?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
I got nothing.
So Sterlington, and you just let me know when you can hear me here.
Let me try to stop out. I'll come back in.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So there was a lot of picks that were really just not necessarily giving Sterlington or Loreauville a huge upper hand or huge advantage there. Just kind of to me it was just surprising that Sterlington was able to win by that margin. Do you agree with that margin, or do you agree with that thought of that it might have been a closer game? And since it wasn't, what went into it?
Yeah, sorry about that. I had some audio problems. I missed.
That's okay. Yeah, no.
I missed some of that, but man, last night really, I wasn't real sure what Loreauville was bringing. I mean, they were sitting at 8-2, or I guess 9-2, really, and had won 8 straight. And so we knew they were well disciplined. They played some decent teams, but really from start to finish, from a defensive standpoint, it's like we had their number. At halftime, they had 30 yards of offense. I think they were -3 rushing and like 30 yards passing. I mean, it was something that was just unbelievable. And they finished the game negative. Blake Delcom, their quarterback's a real running quarterback, about 70% run for them. And he finished the night with -21, I believe. So defensively, the scheme for us was there. And then offensively, we just are clicking right now. The only thing that stopped us last night was a couple penalties. On some touchdowns that got called back, put us behind the chains. And we're not a team that likes to be behind the chains, but just weren't able to convert there. But we're able to get things rolling and got a big win.
What all is clicking on offense? I mean, I saw Birch have a big game. You noticed Sturdivant, at tight end. If he's not filling up the stat sheet, he's certainly a part of it. Breen is an experienced QB, but and Downs on the outside as well. But what particularly is clicking on offense in November?
Man, that offensive line is just seems like better each week. And they're so big. They're so athletic. And another 400-yard rushing night last night for the offense. They had 256 at the half. So that has continued to roll. I was looking before we went on the air. I was looking back. Since the Neville game, the Panthers have averaged 51 points a game and only given up 9. And you win a lot of ball games when you outscore your opponent by 42 points. That's a running clock of difference between those two things. But offensively, just the run right now and the way they're scheming those guys up and those offensive line and receivers even. We joke around here that if you play receiver at Sterlington, you better be able to block. And those guys do a good job on the outside. So when guys like Birch or Xavier Stromile or Shamarian Dismuke get to second level, man, they've got an envoy to the end zone. And so it's really, really working well right now. And then, of course, the play action pass last night was something that was there at least once. We only took one real shot outside the 2 times we got behind the chains. But it was a play action pass. And we had been running that speed sweep to the right. And we faked it. And when we did, the corner had tried to cheat over to help with the run. And the freshman Austin Hill catches a touchdown there early to put us up 20. So, I mean, really right now, they kind of pick your poison. The play action pass and then some passes there, but we are definitely still, as always, a run heavy offense, and right now that offensive line is maintaining that.
Does anything about the performance last night in particular inform your early thoughts about the St. James matchup? In other words, if it was a Union Kinder type game where it took overtime and it took 1 yard making the difference, would that have changed? Okay, look, we went through a tough battle and that prepares us. Or are you more of the opinion of the fact that we were so dominant against a really top tier Division III team in Loreville maybe gives us a better week of preparation for St. James? Where are you with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think so, that we're prepared, but man, I tell you, St. James is just a different animal, and we know that. Playing them in the Dome last year, they didn't lose a whole lot. We remember that last year, doing play-by-play from the Dome last year. All their skill guys are back. I think one of them the tailback may still be banged up, but they had a kid last night go over 3,000 career rushing yards. So, I mean, when your number 2 goes over 3,000 career rushing yards, it's kind of pick your, what are you doing here? But I think we're tested. I think the hard part is, as far as games getting into the fourth quarter, it's been a while. And so you're hoping that your guys, remember those battles. Now, I will say, looking at our schedule, two of the teams, the two teams that we lost to, are both sitting in a semifinal matchup in Division I next week. And, with Washita and Neville, the Washita game we should have had. We really feel like that. We let the Washita game get away from us. The Neville game, we were fixing to tie it there at the end and end up throwing the pick and aren't able to do that. So we feel really good about the games we were in, even the ones we lost. Those two guys sitting in semifinals next week make you feel good, but that's been 7 weeks ago since we had to go through that kind of a grueling 4 quarters. But I tell you, our guys finished hard last night and sets up well for this week. Now, it is a different animal, but and this will be a 4-quarter ball game. I don't think either team is going to get to the fourth quarter. St. James got to over Oak Grove last night quickly. I don't think that happens either way this Friday night. I think it's going to be a 4-quarter ball game, and it may come down to a yard or two.
Yeah, I watched that Washita game, and that did come down. There was a turnover there in the last minute and a half of the game, and who knows what would have happened if that one play goes differently. So that's a good point there. Neutral site game last year, Sterlington versus St. James. Obviously, we know how that one turned out. I said a minute ago with Jace Lejeune, I think that this might be one of the most important home field advantages of any game this season, regular season or playoffs. I think if St. James is hosting Sterlington, I think that's humongous. I think it's just as huge that Sterlington got the 2 seed and gets to host that game, because I think if you're trying to look for any disadvantage amongst St. James, it's the fact that they had to travel up to Washita Parish.
Yeah. Now, I'll say this. I think if we had to go to St. James, it's a bigger advantage than them having to come to us.
I agree.
They have beat us at home 2 years ago in 2023 in a semifinal matchup. So they've made that journey. Some of those kids are still on the team. So they've got that experience. We have never won at Vacherie. Our last 3 trips, we're 0 for 3, and that's the only 3 trips I think have happened historically. So for us, it was important that we not go down there. So it was a very good surprise to see us move to 2 and make them force the trip. Now, I do think you're right that long road trip is a deal when it comes to that semifinal game. The weather is going to play into this. It looks like it's going to be cold and a little wet, and we're just going to have to find out which kids can thrive in that and survive that. But yeah, I'm glad we're not going to Vacherie this week. I've been down there, great little community. Had no desire to go back this year, so it's good to be at home in our place.
Yeah, and Sterlington they've just been a complete roster all year long, and some impressive wins and look strong doing so. I mean, with this potential game, going back 2 months, people were talking about we might get St. James and Sterlington, and a lot that has to happen between there, but that is exactly what happened, and that's what we'll get next week. So, I mean, gosh, such a high-quality matchup, and, just so much precise execution for both teams. Any sort of early margin that you think Coach Doty and the squad will be working on this week to try to be 1 point better or maybe even 1 yard better than St. James at home?
Yeah, I feel certain those guys will have some wrinkles that we probably haven't seen yet. But I think at the end of the day, the one thing that you'll see from us defensively is in practice this week, they're going to have to get some game speed. St. James will walk into the stadium and maybe from top to bottom be some of the fastest players we've seen all year.
Yeah.
And so you got to scheme that a little bit better. The tailback, the receiver, the quarterback from last year, he is so accurate and so quick. And the one area, if Sterlington's had a chink in the armor, it's been against the deep ball. But St. James doesn't need the deep ball. They like to throw underneath and let their guys get loose and run. So you got to make sure you're tackling. I would imagine we'll do a lot of tackling this week. Hoping the weather holds up, lets us get outside. I know Monday we've got some rain up here.
Yeah.
But we need to be outside. We need to be tackling and moving around. So hopefully that all goes. But yeah, I think those guys will do. But we are who we are. And I think St. James is the same way. You talk about wrinkles and things. At this point, semifinals, you're not going to abandon what got you here. So for us, it'll just be a matter of watching the lineup. For both teams, I imagine both teams go back to the dome film and revisit, what went right, what went wrong. And I tell you, this whole bracket of D3 non-select is so interesting to me. Union and Kinder still on the side. We played Union, 3 weeks ago, and I don't know that I thought they would be in a semifinal matchup against Gina, but I sure do like it, and I hope those two get after each other. It should be a fun ball game. If I wasn't watching the Panthers play, I'd be watching that one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. What more could you ask for from those final four left in that bracket? And whether you ask for it or not, those are the teams that seem to end up there. Ben Hackler, the voice of the Sterlington Panthers, man, really, really enjoyed hearing your thoughts on Sterlington. So, not just last night, but through all 12, 13 weeks, even going back to the Jamboree. Going to be a great game, and I feel so ready for it just sitting here hearing your insight from it this morning. So, Ben Hackler, thank you so much for spending some time. If you want to catch any Sterlington Panther football, just go to YouTube and look for SHS Panther football. You can watch those games, and Ben and company will have it live on Friday. So thanks for spending some time with us. Maybe we'll talk about it again next week.
All right, appreciate you, Marshall, and always go Panthers.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah, Ben Hackler does a great job broadcasting those games, and man, just such a knowledgeable source for all things Sterlington football. And then we've touched on a little bit, but yeah, Union able to get an overtime win over Kinder last night. I was there calling that game. Came down to 1 yard on fourth down at the goal line. There was an interception on a 2-point conversion to end the half. That would have been the 1 point that Kinder may have needed. But Union just going and stealing a victory in Allen Parish last night. That's what happened. Similarly to what they did against ERAF in the regional round. So we are down to the final 32 teams, and we'll before we sign off here, let's just recap all those matchups. Ruston, the 1 seed versus 13 seed Zachary, 14 seed Washita Parish at 2-seeded Neville. North DeSoto, the 1 seed will host 5 seed Plaquemine. 2 seed Iowa will host 3rd seeded Belchase. Gina, the 1 seed will host Union Parish, the 12 seed. Sterlington, the 2 seed will face St. James, the 3 seed. Haynesville, the 1 seed will host Jeanerette, the 4 seed. Mangum, the 2 seed will host South Plaquemine, the 3 seed. Edna Carr, the 1 seed will host the 4th seeded Catholic High Bears. Number 3, St. Aug hosts number 7, John Curtis. Number 1, St. Charles hosts number 4, U High. Number 6, Vanderbilt Catholic hosts number 7, Archbishop Shaw. The 1 seed Lafayette Christian hosts the 5 seed Dunham. Number 2, Notre Dame hosts number 6, Calvary. Number 1, Westminster hosts number 5, Ascension Catholic. And number 2, Riverside Academy hosts number 6, Ascension Episcopal. Want to thank everybody who came on and joined us to help us recap this show this morning, recap this round this morning, and we've got some good ones next week. I want to thank Mike McMillan, Doug Gann, Chasten Tavares, Jace Lejeune, Sean Fox, Ben Hackler, Austin Watley, and everyone who's spent time with us this season. Wow. It's hard to digest it all, but it's been just so exciting to follow these matchups, and got some blue bloods back in there, got some surprises in there, and we've got some fantastic games coming up next week. Thanks again for everybody for watching. Thanks again to everyone who joined us to get this show off and running. And we'll be talking about it, half of it, next week. This has been the Red River Roundup. I'm your host, Marshall Leffler, and we are, as always, live on 446 Sports.